Awesome. We're back on the month live for September. So if you wouldn't mind just bearing with me just for a second while I share this on social media platforms that obviously OC Avery has, and then I'll be right back to it and we'll get going. So, yeah, hopefully you all will enjoy today's episode as well. It should be good fun. Hi, Muley Man. I'm good, thank you. How are you? Just whacking it on like Instagram. It'll take 2 minutes. Bear with, please. Um, how are you, mate? I'm good, thank you, Persian Goldfinch. How are you? I'm good. Good, nice one, Muley Man. Hi, George. Nice to see you on here, mate. Just sharing the stream. Bear with, please. Yeah, it won't take long. There we are. And that's Instagram done. Facebook, and then I can just whack it on there as well. So yeah, we've got a couple bits to talk about today. Um, it's been an interesting month, that's for sure. And obviously, new plans are starting to really come in now. So yeah, it's getting interesting. Uh, think. Okay, that's that, and one last one. Okay, so there's all sorts of things going off. Obviously behind the scenes. So we've literally just started on the new bird room. So um, just started on the new bird room, and that's literally like I ordered it the other day. So it's a 15 by 12. Now, if you've watched the episode that came out this morning, um, you'll have seen um, that we've started on the footings of this, and it's going well so far. It is hard work. It's very hard work, but I think that was one of the worst things is that because of how there we are, all sorted, all shared, just there. Okay, so because of how everything is, in basically where the new bird room's going is where the old one is. Um, in case you not sort of got the gist of that. So the block that is there right now is a 14 by 10. So we're extending it, 15, to 15. So it's an extra foot long and it's an extra 2 foot wide. So it just really makes a difference, and it means that we can do a lot more, put more cages in, and make it a bit more to suit. Because to be honest, um, the current setup we have, for the most part, is not purpose built. Originally, the bird room that we do a lot of the filming in, which we bred the red poles in this year, that's not that wasn't intended for cages. That was literally a sort of a mixed aviary to begin with, where we had zebra finches, canaries, diamond doves, Java sparrows, Bengalese finches, all sorts. And then obviously it went to extending, so it went to a 10-foot bit. That was good with the extension, and then we extended it to 14 foot. So it had this massive outdoor flight. Now, that's why some of the things are arranged differently, and that's why the flights are massive, unnecessarily large for finches. So that's why we're changing a lot of the things. Is it wasn't purpose built, and also one of the big problems is that originally, when we got the first aviary about, well, it's what 2022 now, so it's about 7 and 8 years ago since we got that first aviary, and which is that original bird room now, which is the red pole room. That's sat on a decking that at the time was in really good condition. It was painted every year, it was cleaned off every year, so it was all fine. And obviously just over nearly seven odd years of work, and bird poo, water coming from birds, rain, and then it just not being absolutely cleaned off and able to dry as easily because there's been something down to protect the floor as much, with birds going on there constantly and making sure the birds don't get any legs trapped in any gaps in the wood or anything. It's took its wear and tear over the years, and to be honest, that decking is now getting on for 19 years old, I believe. I think I was only a couple of months old when we moved here, and that was built relatively, soon after we moved here. So it's getting on for 20 years old. That deck in 19, 20 years old. So it is aging, and obviously it's getting a deck into that age is good. So because we've got a bird room sat on there, we've got flights sat on there. Obviously, we're storing quite a bit of stuff in there. There's a lot of expensive birds in there, a lot of equipment. It's tired now. It's getting a point where the wood's rather rotten. We've had rats come up through in a couple of months ago in the winter. Yeah, a rat had come up through. I noticed it as soon as it happened that morning. We ended up taking all the birds out, stripping it all back, and sort of replacing the floor. But it wasn't a permanent fix. So that's why we're looking at, we need a new bird room, and it's basically that's all coming down. So I'm going to be doing a really big deep clean out of one of the bird rooms this week, so we can get a load more stuff in there. We can move birds in there, then we can rip down the flights, start ripping up the decking, and really get going. So I've ordered the new bird room. It's due to be delivered, I believe, the 17th of January. So that's, it's a couple of months away, but it's a lot of work. Is that there's all this stuff to take down. There's the whole decking to rip up. You've got to move all of that. Now, I can drive, however, the car that we would do tip runs in is the truck, and I can't be insured on that because it costs a ridiculous amount. So it means that I'm going to have to get, either my mum or my dad to be helping me do these tip runs, because my car's not ideal to be putting a load of wood and mesh in it, and I'd just rather use the truck because we've got that. So it's basically going to end up where, it's a time consuming process. We're going to end up with so much scrap. I haven't got room to have a bonfire, or I would burn a lot of it. I think that would be a good idea. So there's all that, and then once that whole area is clear, we've got about, I think, 4 tons of gravel that needs to come in. We need to set that down, whacker plate that down. Then we're looking at getting a concrete delivery and just getting concrete poured straight into the gap, full on solid concrete base, vermin proof, really easy to clean. And it just removes so much hassle and so many problems, by having a proper concrete base down, something that's going to be all right. And it just means that the new bird room and shed that's going on, that's not cheap, by the way, is going to be as well sort of protected and looked after as possible, because at some point when I do eventually move out, and it ain't gonna be anytime soon, is that then that bird room is still going to remain. So it's going to be converted into something else. So it's just something to take into account, and obviously at that time I'll have a new bird room anyway. I'd have thought, if I have moved out, or we'll have some option. So that's basically where we're at with it. So it's 4 months now or so. It's a lot of work to be done, but I'm up for it. When I'm not at uni, or I'm having to, working or what, I'm going to be able to get on with it, casting stuff, ripping stuff down, preparing stuff, and it's going to be really good. Now, what I am doing and what I've got in the plans are some new cages. So it's going to be expensive, but it's going to be worth it, I think, because my idea being is that I'm going to buy these cages, and these cages are going to last me an awful long time. So I'm not looking to get some cages that I have for a couple of years and then they get tired. So I'm getting some plastic cages to begin with, and I'm going to get those made. So we're getting a 12-foot block of cages built. They're going to be 18 inches deep and about 18 inches tall, sort of per block, and we're getting 4 rows of them. So they're going to be fantastic. The reason for going deeper, 18-inch deep and 18-inch high, is it gives us loads of options for what can be bred in there. British birds always need that space, and getting those bigger cages just really makes a difference. I've found, at least, in breeding them. We had better success breeding British in larger cages this year than smaller cages. Not always the case, but I think, the more room you can give them, the better. So that's why I'm working on that. 18-inch deep, loads of room for them, and then 18-inch height. So it's a good height. So I imagine we could probably comfortably breed greenfinches in that sort of size cage. We could probably breed crossbills, a bit of all sorts. And it just means that we've got a setup that can be adapted to so many different things, and it doesn't limit me. Rather than getting some cages that might be smaller, so we can get more in, I'm getting sort of fewer cages in, but the larger. So we've just got loads of options. We can breed something else in there should we come to it, where you might, let's say, however many years down the line, we get something larger, for example. It just means that we've got that option, even if it was something like having blackbirds as starlings. And if we was looking to show something like that, it'd probably be ideal having it in a cage to sort of house it, catch it up, train it, and sort of monitor it, than it would be to have it in a flight. I think that's my thoughts behind it anyway, is that it'd probably be easier than having to catch the bird up, stress it out every time I want to show cage train it, or it goes to a show day. Having it a cage, a bit more settled. So it just gives us loads of options. Loads more doors are open, so we can do all sorts of different things with that. Now, that's one block. So we've got an existing block that's going in there. We're getting a new block of plastic cages made, which are going to go across the back wall. Now we've got then a further sort of third wall which can be used for this. Now, I did think, shall I just get some new cage? Should just get some more cages on there. But by getting cages, it limits. Now, I was thinking of flights. I could build some flights in this new bird room. However, because of the amount of room that a flight takes up and how I'm building it, I can't build. This sheds a lot of money, and I don't want to affect anything structurally on it by attaching wood to pieces, building it down as much as possible. So what I don't want to do is build some flights that are sort of built in. What I want is removable things. Now, I've gone through a load of options, and what I've come up with is the aluminium sort of flights and aviaries and stuff. So what I'm going to be getting made is some flight cages, and I think they're going to work out quite nicely in how how I'm getting them constructed. So it gives us loads of options. So what we're getting is 2 blocks of 6-foot long cages there. So 6 foot long, they're 2 feet deep, 3 feet high, and we've got a block, a row across the top, a row across the bottom. We've got 2 blocks like that that can come out. So we're going to run one in. My plan is to run one across the front of the window for the light, and one sort of halfway out between the windows, the back wall cages, and then run one there. So it means that we can get round it, we can look at the birds, and we can film the birds from different angles. And I think that it should be all right. And I'm going to make sure that if it's not, and we have to slightly change, rearrange move things, as we may end up doing at some point, is that I've got these options. And what I'm doing is that in these 6-foot cages, we've got dividers in them as well, so that they can just be removed. We can slide birds off where we need to. What would we look to, what would we be looking to breed in these sort of size cages? Now, if we have dividers in, each cage is going to be 2 feet deep, 3 feet high, and 3 feet long. So it's a good size block. Now, my idea would be, if we had dividers in completely, they'd probably be ideal for something along the lines of twites. Greenfinches probably work nicely in them, crossbills. I'd probably do some, the sort of larger species mules and hybrids with them. So if we was going for something like a crossbill mule, they might be better in that sort of size cage. If I was going for something like a crossbill greenfinch, a attempted hawfinch hybrid, a crossbill bully, or something like that, they're probably all right. Now, if I remove the dividers, we get a 6-foot long but 2 feet wide but 3 feet high block. My idea is then that I'd probably have a whole pair of hawfinches in there. Realistically, I think that would be the best sort of thing, because based on what I've learned this year with my hawfinch pair that we had, they seem relatively comfortable, and I think that breeding them like that might be better to, overall, rather than in a flight where going to catch the bird up, you have to go in the flight, the hen might be on the nest, you have to disturb it, catch the cockbird if he's been a problem, or if it's introducing the cockbird to the hen and he's getting aggressive. If I can have a cage where I can just slide him off, they can see each other, can't hurt each other, and then let them in just to mate, it might work really well. So that's the idea, is to give me a load of options. Now, as it goes for soft bills, I've been looking at this. I've been speaking to a friend about soft bills as well, and I am interested. I would love to have some. I've got two concerns. One is the cost of having them, is that they eat an awful lot of stuff, an awful lot of expensive stuff. I have to order a lot of mealworms and constantly have live food on supply. Um, so we might have to stay away for a short amount of time from things like blackbirds, song thrushes, and stuff like that. But what I am interested in doing is getting some smaller soft bills, which will breed in sort of smaller flights. So I think my immediate thoughts are bearded reedlings will breed well in these sort of flight cages, these large cages. Um, I think if we then, maybe something else like stone chats, I've heard, can be bred in smaller sort of flights. Um, Perhaps starlings, but then we look to other things. And one of my thoughts are Pekin robins. Now they're not a British bird, but they're an idea for something that might work. And we could have Pekin robins, for example, in these flights. We could have, even other things like yellowhammers, reed buntings. They might settle rather well in this sort of thing. And how I'm going to be arranging them and adapting them, I think it might suit quite nicely. So it's just a thought, it's just an idea, and hopefully something that we can, change with. I've got wheels on them, so I can move them freely. I can take them out of the bird room when we're doing deep cleans. It's going to be really good, and I'm making sure that it's all something that is going to be done well. Because I want it to be done well, and I'm making sure that the equipment I'm investing in, because it is a lot of money, is going to be equipment that can be used by myself as much as possible, and it can work if I do have to sell it, is that it can fit in other people's setups. So I'm having a 12-foot block of cages, but because of the size of it, a 12-foot block is massive for transport anyway. But also, if I did eventually look to sort of move these cages on, it's not ideal. So we're getting them done in 6-foot block cages. So there's ease of transport. There's so many different aspects I'm taking into account, so that by the time the setup comes back, if I have to move cages to a new setup or anything like that, they're relatively easy to transport. They're they're easy to get hold of. What I don't want to be doing is having a massive block of cages that can't quite fit through a shed door, because then you have to have a custom sized shed door or remove a window or a panel, and it's not ideal. So it just means that they can be adapted and moved as much as possible to make sure everything works. And by having it as a 6-foot block and a 6-foot block, I could even sort of do it in L shape if we want. So it just means there's so many options there that it's going to work out, I think, better in the long run. We're going to have loads of options, and I do intend on staying on in this hobby. Some people might say, "Yeah, but will you be doing it in 5 years' time?" Well, yes, unless something drastically wrong goes on. Yes, I will be. So I think it'll work out quite nicely. I hope you're well. Thank you, PS. Hope you're well too. Hi, Canary lad. Sounds like going to be a fantastic new room. Yeah, it is. I'm making sure that it's you know I'm probably going to use this room realistically. Look, I'm 20 in a month, just over a month's time. I'm at uni technically full time, so as it goes for getting enough money to even look at moving out, it's I'm at uni for another 3 years. Excuse me, for minimum. Then it's other sort of training, because I'd be interested in doing sort of further education on that. So I mean, would I do a doctorate? I don't know. You know, Without going into too much detail, I don't like uni. I hate the uni that I'm at, but I'm sticking with it because it's costing a lot of money and it's convenient. And I'm not going to go into much detail, but it depends. So I think in 5 years' time, we'll be looking to move out. Well, that's probably the shortest amount of time, and I'm happy here. It's easy, so I'll live with that. So I want to get it done right, done well, so we're happy, and it's just easy to maintain. It's all good. And then if I do eventually, end up moving out, I can come back, and the birds are still going to be there. So I think it's going to be quite good, and we're going to get some lights put in there, because I'm getting the whole front as much as possible done in windows, so that we get as much natural light as possible. Obviously, that's really important. And I'm going to have to check my sources and details on this, but from what I've been taught at uni and what I recall being said, was that bird skulls are partially penetrable to light, and then it activates and stimulates the brain, which then helps bring them into condition. And I don't quite understand how all this works, but from what I understand, it does work, it does happen. So natural light's a massive part. We all know that, getting vitamin D into the birds and really keeping them in good health, sunlight. So making sure there's as much sunlight as possible. What I talk about this with the other rooms is that when it is when it is slightly dark, perhaps in a corner of the room or what, and there is birds there, I'm going to have some sort of, I don't know, like sort of tube lights put in the roof, so that I can have them on a timer. I'm going to make sure they're LED ones or something, so it's really cheap to run. I might even look at some point sort of getting some solar panels just so it can, run them in the summer and hopefully, sort of work itself out. And I think that'll make a difference if we do want to control light for whatever reason. We've got the option to. I'm going to be plastic paneling out a number of the sides, like the roof for sure. Just as an insulation sort of perspective, is that when it's really hot or really cold, heat doesn't come in too much or is lost. Um, and then probably some of the side panels as well, where there's going to be these aluminium cages, just because we all know what birds are like. They manage to get poo everywhere, and they get it on the roof of their own cage. It's like, how the hell did you do that? Pooed on the wing and then flick it up. You know what they're like. So I just rather not it spray up all the walls. You know what I mean? So I'm going to board it all out with this plastic paneling I've got. I think it's going to look quite good. I'm going to get a desk in there and a sink just to stay on top of things. Probably going to put a freezer in there as well for ease. We've got a spare freezer, so that's fine. A medicine cabinet, just so everything's stored nicely. We've got a cabinet as well for underneath storage, so we can put a bit of breeding stuff in there. Bags of seed. I'm going to have some seed bins is my plan, and also by having a desk in there would be quite nice that I can have, a bit of power in there. I can plug my laptop in. We can do live streams in there, and we can do different sort of things. I think it'll be really quite good. We can have, put a couple of the bird books in there and show schedules and stuff like that. So it's going to be fantastic, and it's going to take a lot of time and effort, but once it's done, it'll be fantastic. Really looking forward to it anyway. And obviously, there's quite a few spoilers in there, but all you can do is imagine it in your head. So it's going to be really good. However, that's a great idea. Able to divide clothes off the birds without the stress of catching all the best with the new setup. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, that's the idea. Is just having the option to divide birds, especially like hawfinches, something that can be really like sensitive and not get on with each other and kill each other if they don't quite get on. I'd rather not take the risk with them. So having the option to do that, and even if it's a wire divider, so they can see each other, feed each other, but if they're having to go at each other, they can stay away from each other and they can't get to each other. So it'd be ideal, and it just gives us those options. It'd be nice. I'm really grateful for the advice you've given me. Definitely want to look up the solar panel, especially with the energy price rising. Just a second. Yeah, you're welcome to begin with. PS, thank you for watching the channel. I really appreciate the support everyone gives and supports the channel. Yeah, the solar paneling would be not to begin with, but it's definitely something I'm going to look into because it would save a fortune with just getting lights sort of run. If I could run some really low like energy lights in there on a timer and have some solar panels, where it is it gets the sun sort of all day, so it's perfect. It's just how much would a solar panel cost? Well, they're not cheap, so I'd have to look at maybe whether it's some second-hand ones or some options like that. I'm gonna see what I can do, but it also just make it a bit more sustainable. You know what I mean? So we're breeding birds. It's it takes a lot of effort. You obviously have to get all these things. If I can just make take the edge off it, it'd be ideal because they're not cheap. To keep anyway. With the amount of seed that they get through, it's ridiculous. So yeah, so this is an interesting development for you. And I haven't actually announced this yet. So this is the announcement. I am now the show secretary for the Lancashire British Bird and Mule Club, I believe. Yeah, the Lancashire, that's for sure. I'm just trying to remember all the other extra little bits. But yeah, so I'm the show secretary now. So I'm in charge of sort of the running of the show. So getting sort of forms sent out with your entries. I can put that into stuff. And then I'll send you out the labels and what have you. So that should be good. I'm in charge of sort of printing the show schedules to begin with, and just a lot of the sort of behind the scenes work in getting everything sort of set up, putting in birds on sort of the catalogs. So yeah, it's I was offered the position 2 weeks ago. It took a bit of time. I needed to have a think about it. I needed to look into it because I wanted to make sure that if I was going to do the position, I did the best job that I can do, and that it would work for me. And I'm pleased to say that I think it's the right thing. I think I'll be good at it. I'm not bad at technology. I'd say I'm rather competent at technology on sort of simple levels anyway. Until it gets really, really complex. But I'm generally all right with most things. I can't imagine, based on what I've seen and understand so far, it's pretty easy. Just on the technology sort of side. So I'm really looking forward to it. So that show is, I want to say November 21st. So that should be that's a Sunday anyway. It should be a good show. I'll make sure to promote it as much as possible. So make sure as many people are there. And on that note, I just wanted to actually talk about Stafford. But I want to say is this issue. Yes, it is. So just the Staffordshire National Show is in is October 2nd. So next, yeah. So it's the Sunday. We have a live stream the night before Stafford, all going well anyway. So because of obviously Stafford's on, there's a big entry for loads of different birds. Of course, it's a national show now. It's slightly early for British birds, but that being said, it's get your sort of earlier bred birds out, and you can get some of those out that have molted now. That's on obviously the Sunday. It is an earlier start one because obviously got to get the birds in the show, but it's a really good day. Loads to do. Loads of birds to look at, thousands and thousands of birds on sale. So make sure you bring some money if you're interested in buying some. But yeah, so just on that. So by the way, this is in Cage and Aviary, and I'm going to put this on Facebook and Instagram just for everyone else's sake. I'll just go through the clubs that are there. So if you're interested in showing some birds at the Stafford National Exhibition, I highly recommend you do. It's fantastic. So let me just go to the actual clubs. The Blue Lizard Canary Club of Great Britain. I believe these are all the ones that are accepting classes. You've got Canary Colour Breeders Association, Gloucester Canary Club, English Cinnamon Club, Lizard Canary Association, the Fife Fancy Open Show. You've got the North Staffs Fife, but no, I think it's Border even. I apologise. Irish Fancy is on there. You've got Yorkshire Canary Club, Old Varieties Canary Association, Norwich Canaries, London Fancy. So that's a new sort of recreated breed. So that's quite exciting. The National Bengalese Fancy Association, Staffordshire British Bird and Mule Club. So I'm going to be entering a couple of birds in that. We've got the National Exhibition Budgerigar section. So there's budgie shows as well. There's Lovebird Society. So they're doing a show. You've got British Gullian Finch, Zebra Finch. So they are just some of them which are in there. And I believe there's a couple more clubs, but there's loads of them. And I highly recommend that if you want to show your birds, this is a good show to show at. Great for beginners to be starting out. This is the first show that I ever went to. October 2019, I went to the Stafford National Exhibition. entered two cobalt red poles. I got first and second in the class. The first bird in class also got best novice hardbill. So I was absolutely over the moon. I'd won a special and I'd won first at my first show. I was, ecstatic. I was actually in the cage in Aviary a couple of weeks later, and it was just fantastic. So I highly recommend if you do want to show, you do show at this. What's paper you're reading shows from? Cage and Aviary Bird Magazine. Thanks, George. Where can I get this from? P.S. So this is the August 24th edition. So this is a couple of weeks ago. This is last week's edition. So I don't know if you were to get it. Usually, you can either order it online. I think it's Kelsey Media. I want to say, or you can sometimes, like WH Smith or post offices have it. Not a lot, not a load of them, but usually WH Smith have it. So I do sort of recommend that you either order it online is probably ideal, or WH Smith is ideal. But yeah, so this is it, and it's not just got that. Obviously, I put editions in every month, so that was that one. I'm actually in it sort of last week's, so I'll have to whack that up at some point. And I do a monthly sort of write up for them, so I've actually got one just to send in for sort of this past month. But there's all sorts in there. There's information on budgies, all sorts of different birds. English cinnamon sort of section. It's really good. And looking at sort of different things. Gouldian finch section and Australian finches, and even in the back is a little bit of big called bargain box, birds for sale on there as well. So it's just ideal if there's something specific you're after. You can put either a wanted ad out, or sometimes some really good offers do come. For example, here there's a couple of common red starts that are £100 each. Last year's birds, one cock, two hens, and the guy's number. So it's ideal, and it's just a nice little thing. I get that every week. Just something ideal to useful to have. Sounds really good. Anything that helps broaden my knowledge. Exactly. I always found some really interesting articles in there. There's one a couple of months ago on sort of red poll species and different species. A red poll and how they're different. There's one on crossbills. There was one on the hawfinches, green finches, and trichomoniasis. So yeah, really interesting, really useful to sort of have anyway. So I do recommend that you get the Cage and Aviary if it's something you'd be interested in anyway. But yeah, so that's the national show, and on the topic of the national show, I am going to be entering some birds into that show for sure. I don't quite know what it's going to be yet. I'll probably put a greenfinch in if there's a greenfinch that's looking all right for that time. I'll probably put a twite in, a couple of red poles, maybe, some colour variants and some normals. I might even put in a Norwich, possibly. I don't know. It depends what they molt out like. There's one in particular. Well, actually, there's two. I can't decide which one, but I might put a Norwich in. I just don't know if I should start the clock on the Norwich yet. In that, if I show a Norwich, then it's it's 5 years, and then I'm champion automatically. And with me only breeding a single Norwich this year, and the stock I've got to mess about with, I don't know if that's the right idea, but I might do it. I've not decided yet. So I'll be entering a couple of birds in that show for sure. I plan on getting a table and booking a table and taking some birds to sell. Now, this is dependent on how many have molted out, and some of which I won't be taking, because I know that I'm going to have to get rid of some of them, but I can't decide yet because they're not going to be in sort of able to assess the quality. What I can almost guarantee is going to be there is a number of pairs of red poles, probably not current years, but sort of last seasons and older birds. But yeah, these are proven birds as well, so I make sure that if I'm selling red poles, they are in proven pairs for you, or at least definite pairs. There will be a handful of canaries as well, so I'm not quite sure on the breeds, but I imagine there's going to be some yellow dimorphics, possibly some harlequins, probably a pair of Irish and a couple of just mixed up things like that. Maybe some agate opals. I haven't decided yet on those. It depends on how they molt out and what they look like, and obviously I need to get them sexed as well. But there's options there. So I will be taking a number of birds to sell because I need to get rid of at least a couple of them as we're doing this new bird room, just to create that space and make sure we're not cramping any birds up, because it is obviously, when with having a load of flights down, it's not ideal for storing birds that aren't going to be doing anything in the show season. So I will have a table and I will be selling a number of birds. Now, I've no idea sort of what I'll be taking until probably the week before, and I won't be able to tell you prices either. So just I'll keep you up to date on that. As it goes for another thing, I have been asked to do some display aviaries at the Stafford National Exhibition as well. So it's looking like I'm going to be doing at least one, if not three, and I'm going to just quickly check. But I'm probably going to be having some display aviaries, and we're going to see if I can get a come on, think. I'm going to see if I can get a table with the display aviaries, and in there we're going to have a couple of just different sort of birds in there. All obviously birds that I've got here, birds that I'm not going to be showing. So providing they've molted, I'll probably put the pair of hawfinches in one. I'd like to, people to see them. They're lovely birds as it goes anyway. They're definitely sort of favourites of mine, and they're not something you commonly see in person. So I would like people to see them. So I'll probably bring the pair of hawfinches for display. As for the other two aviaries, I won't be able to tell you what that is. That's more of a secret. But also slightly undecided. But there's going to be some display aviaries of my birds there. So something you can look forward to seeing. And I believe that at the end of the show, those aviaries will be on sale for a reduced price. Now, birds aren't included in that. They're my birds. They're not my aviaries, but they will be available towards the end of the show, to my understanding. So it should be good. And we're going to be doing a number of things there. I'm going to be filming, so if you'd like to be in a video, then I'll probably be, we'll have some equipment there to film with, and we're just going to do a real, couple of different things there. It's going to be good fun. So yeah, have you had yours this week? As ours hasn't arrived yet. Yeah, I had mine on Monday. I usually get it on Mondays, to be honest. Anyway, it usually comes first, on the day or the day before it's supposed to. So yeah, I've had the Cajun Aviary. I was in it last week's edition. I need to whack a photo up somewhere of that. I don't put it on when it's the current edition. And the reason being is that if people just want to read my articles, they could just check my social media. And obviously the Cajun Aviary sells the paper, and it's just not fair on them. So I don't put it on social media generally, really. Hi, mate. You into anything in the Lucas Wash Bird Show? Hi, I don't know. I want to. I would very much like to enter something into that show. However, I can't guarantee that. So, I mean, I don't know how long you've been the stream, Ian, but I've just accepted the role of the show secretary for the Ilkeston, show secretary for the Lancashire British Bird and Mule Club. Therefore, I'm going to be, the weekend of, I think, the 20th of November or 21st of November is when that show is on. So if the show is that weekend, I'm not going to be able to at all. If it's any other weekend that doesn't coincide with a big British show that I would be looking to show at, then yes, I will be. I always look to support the local clubs anyway. It's just, last year it dropped on the same date as the big first of the year big British show, so I had to go to the British, because I think I'd actually already got some stuff there as well. Like I'd already sent out some forms when I found out or what. However, hope you're well, mate. Really looking forward to your new bird room, mate. Should be epic. Yeah, it really should be, Victor. I'm really looking forward to it, to be honest. It's hard work. There's a lot of hard work involved, but I'm making sure we're going to do it right. We're going to do it right the once, so we don't have to redo things. And it's going to last as well, is the idea. What I am looking to try and do is get a vinyl sort of kitchen flooring in there, like what we've got in the young bird room. But the problem is that the young bird room one cost me like 20 quid for a cut off. And I know that if I want to do out the whole shed, it's probably going to cost me 150 quid just to lay a vinyl flooring in there. And I then have to decide, well, how much is it worth to me to actually put a vinyl flooring down in a bird room? I'm not sure. You know, it's ideal for mopping up anything that they spill and doing seed, but yeah, is it worth 150 quid? I have to spend a crap load of money on it already, so I'm not sure. But yeah, it will be good. What do Dimorphics and agates go for these days? So Dimorphics, you know, it all depends on the quality. But if we say mid-quality Dimorphics, you can probably pick up a pair 50 quid, sort of 25 a piece, probably in red and yellow. The agates, I presume you mean the agate opals. Now, they're more difficult. You'd have to say for a bang average sort of pair, probably 50 quid. The ones I've got are a lot more than that because, you know, we made sure that what we was doing is, one, keeping the best birds possible, that you know, when we bought a load of them, but also these were from some really sort of top lines, European lines, and so these are going to be more towards £80 a pair probably. But you know, I always make sure that with them, you know, um I sell birds for what, one, similar what I paid for them, and two, I want to make sure that I think the birds are worth it. You know, I don't want to be ripping people off, and I won't rip people off because it's not fair. You know, and I'm not going to just charge a fortune just because I can, because I don't want to. I want people to get birds, and I want people to be happy with them, and I want people to feel that they've bought something and got a good deal and not been ripped off. Cheers, mate. Spot on. There you go. Plus, looking at top birds, want to show them. Yeah. So the pairs I've got, yeah, I'll be selling pairs possibly at Stafford, depending on sort of, you know, how we've come through the molt and what's cocks and hens of what we've bred. There will be about £80 a pair, I think. I can't guarantee that yet. So there's going to be yellow agate opals. There's going to be white agate opals as well, because we bred quite a few of those this year because it's recessive and I didn't realize it was in there, but they're actually lovely birds anyway. And finally, I believe there's a couple of ivories as well, but I don't know, so I'm going to have to check that. To be honest, I haven't really looked at them much. Like, yeah, I've seen them, but until I get them in show cages and sort through, I don't really know how many I've bred. I've probably bred about 15 of them. And you know, we did lose about 2 or 3 of the parent birds. One of them, somehow, I think it chewed its own toe and ended up chewing its toe off, and I found it like covered in blood, and it was awful because it was still hung on. I have no idea how it managed it, because it was in a cage at the time as well. It hadn't got its foot stuck anywhere, and we sadly did lose that one. And then one of the others just one day just sort of almost went light, but they've been treated for baycocks. I don't really know, but you know, all the ones that are now there look superb, you know, although they are molting. So, yeah, I would like to show some the agate opals. I'm actually supposed to be getting some new color show cages anyway soon. It's just I've no, you know, I know these are good quality, but I don't know what the quality is like on the show bench because I haven't specifically looked at them before. Like, I haven't gone around a show specifically to look at agate opals, so I don't really know. I don't know where do mine sit on this, and will they compete, which I think they will, but you know, I don't know exactly what the show standard is for them yet, so not sure yet. I mean, I might leave it a season, breed a couple more, develop them a bit more, and then look to show them after another season with them. So yeah, that should, yeah, that should be quite good. I'm just trying to think of other things that I specifically thought. Excuse me. Here you are. Here you are. Another specific thing that I thought of to talk about. So, how many people, and let me know in the comments, have actually had birds sort of go to nest in the molt? Because this has been a real first for me. I've never had a bird go to nest this late when it's mid molt. But you may have seen, if you watched the video that came out this morning, the season finale of Breeding British Birds season 2, is that a dimorphic hen began about 5 days ago building a nest in a seed pot, just picking up random pieces of bit of easy bed, bit of cocoa fiber, and just managed to somehow find enough cocoa fiber and stuff to build a lovely little nest in a seed pot for about after about 2 days. And I didn't notice it was there to begin with because she'd originally put a little bit in. I thought, oh, it's just birds picking up, threw it out, fill up the seed pot. Anyway, that was in the morning. They come back round to them sort of the next morning to check everything's all right. And there's a fully formed nest in there. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to leave this because I don't know what's building it. Anyway, 2 days later, there's an egg in there, and I've seen the dimorphic hen sat on it. But she's got like a number of flight feathers missing, a number of tail feathers missing, and body feathers, and she's just sort of sat in a seed pot. So I did take the nest out this morning. She didn't lay for a day, and I just thought I can't have this. So I've took the nest out. She might rip it out and then rebuild it. I'd rip it to pieces and rebuild it. I don't know, but I've not really had it happen this late before, so I don't really know. I mean, they're not even getting much protein in that. I'm not increasing protein and not changing anything than what they used to. So it's not like they're coming into condition or anything. I can't see how she's possibly in the condition, but that's how it is. Yes, me, mate. I had a red pole lay and hatched two in molt and then left them after 3 days. So I'm down rear at the moment. Wow, gee, that's late, Ian. That's mad late. Did you not realise it was there and within a mixed flight at all? Because this is one of the things that always intrigues me. And had it been earlier, I probably would have left the hen to, maybe put a nest site up, but just leave it, and then she could have bred with any number of males that were in there just to see what comes out. But I want to try a mixed flight again, just because it can lead to so many different weird things. And I might look to do that where we have these big 6-foot aluminium flight cages, and I might put like a pair of, I don't know, a pair of bullfinches in there and a pair of red poles and maybe a canary, and we'll just see what happens if we can get a mule, if we can get a hybrid, anything like that. It always intrigues me, just mixing stuff. So yeah, I know. Yes, I was just leaving it to sit them through, thinking they wouldn't even be full. Mate, fair enough, mate. That makes sense. To be honest, I've heard of it happening before. Somebody last season had some pied greenfinch. They had a mixed flight of greenies, and I think they got a big flight as well. So they put them all in the same one. They got mainly pieds, and then they got a couple of normals, and then loads of youngsters. And he'd left a load of cover up for them just to make them a bit more comfortable, and ended up coming in one morning, I think, seen some eggshells on the floor and thought, where have these come from? Like, I don't think these were here before. Anyway, looking through the stuff, and a greenie hen mid molt had built up a nest in some of the cover there, bred with however many males, and then was sitting on the nest. He didn't know they were there until they'd hatched. And I think at this point, she'd gone to nest in mid-September. I think it was something like the 2nd or 3rd of October that he found some eggshells, and he got a pied greenie that was in the molt, and all the males were supposedly in the molt. Somehow one of the cockbirds had filled the eggs, even though it was molting, which is really unusual. And as we'd have thought, actually, anyway. If you didn't think they were full, it's because the other males are molting, so they aren't really fertile at that point. Anyway, I think they jumped the nest sort of by mid-October, and then November they started. Mid-November, these young greenies had started molting, and I just think that's got to be one of the latest nests of British finches bred, because by September the wild ones are mainly all going into the molt at that point. They do seem to. They start later, so they finish a little later than in captivity. Most things will start in April and then finish by August. In the wild, I think May is prime sort of first round finch time, between the beginning and end of May, and then they push through sort of August. So yeah, but I mean that baffled me, and then I think. Yeah, actually, this is another one. I tell you what, I'll just answer some comments for a second. Hi, Oliver, Pete. Are you going to be selling any of your Irish fancy canaries? Pete, yes, I will be. Now, I can't quite remember the name of the line they're from, but to my understanding, they're actually from quite a good line. I'm going to have a pair for sale for sure. One of the flighted pairs I've just decided, look, I've got a pair of Irish. I'll have a pair of Irish next year. Got a couple of youngsters, so I'll let one of the adult pairs go. I don't know which pair it'll be yet, but I'll sort that out. Um, so yes, I will have a pair for sure for sale, probably at Stafford, providing they're all malted. If it's not Stafford, it'll be Newark. One of those two shows. I think Newark's sort of anything that's ready by Stafford that I know is get going, I will be getting rid of. And then if anything that's not finished malting, it'll be going to Newark. So yeah, I'll be there at both shows. Oh, hi Nikki. Yes, I am going to Newark, mate. Yes. So there you are. How many weeks do they molt for? That's a really good question. I found that adult birds molt quicker than the youngsters, and I think it's just because the youngsters are still growing and all that. They're not putting all their energy into it. Um, a lot of them started in sort of almost late July or early August. So I think usually it's probably 6 weeks, you'd say, and then a further 2 weeks for them to sort of really fill out and stuff because they do need to fill out as well. Um, So yeah, you probably say 6 weeks for adults. Youngsters are longer. There's still some greenies that I bred a couple of months ago that haven't finished molting. They're still changing. So yeah, it's been a funny year, mate. Climate change and all that. I reckon. I actually seen a wood pigeon carry twigs today. It's crazy. Yeah, exactly. That's another thing. It's weird. I was in London on Tuesday, so I've gone and okay. Spoiler alert. I've probably I'm going to be posting a video on the wild parakeets in London. I went and filmed a load of them, hand fed them, and all sorts. And there was some youngsters, and I'm not kidding. They must have been four, maybe not a bit older, 5, 6 weeks old. They've still some of them have still got the fluff on them. That like I know they're not a native bird as such, but they're still breeding into September, and there's youngsters that have not long since jumped the nest there, and I'm like, these guys are probably just going to finish molting by the time that there's snow on the ground at this point. So it's crazy. I think, like you say, it is climate change. It's messes with them. Because a lot of things where birds that were once migrating now aren't. Birds are finding new habitat and expanding their range than they naturally would occupy. So for example, this year, I believe it was the first bee eaters were bred in Britain for over 400 years. And there was, I think, a couple of them, a small flock of them in Norfolk. They built nests, and anyway, some chicks fledged mid August, I think. Birds that would generally not breed in this country have been. So it's part of the parts of climate change, and I think there's some positives in there in that it's birds that may once have gone to extinction in the UK are actually finding the way here now. Because of climate change, and it's going to help sort of balance other things within sort of ecosystems and stuff. But then there's obviously other birds that shouldn't be here that are, and they can't find the correct habitat, or they're preying on other species that, and then declining those that are actually full on natives. So, yeah. However, I've kept birds for years. When breeding golden mules, I've let the hens go down end of July, start of August. The hens sat reared, although they will stop when they molt. That's one of the things, Mark. This is why I made sure the start of August was sort of a cut-off point for any nests that I'd set. I've bred them. Obviously, we've still got a couple of greenies that are sort of finishing off with their youngsters. But that was one of the biggest things that I had to take into account, is that the last thing that we wanted to happen was ending up from setting some nests. The hen sits them for 2 weeks, starts rearing the chicks, and then stops feeding, because obviously it's horrible to see them starving. But it's trying to have the time to constantly top them up. It's so difficult. Hand feeding birds. I think I've hand fed black birds before, and that's really that's hard work. That is, I did that a couple of years ago for a rescue centre that I'll help out. That's hot. It's really hard work. I'd been almost tempted to do it with cockatiels a few times a couple of years ago, but I always found that the amount of time it takes was ridiculous. Um, and the parent reared birds were always they always just seem to have that bit more of an edge about them. I found personally, not always, but some of them just seem to be a bit more sort of, I don't know, switched on or um, a bit more go about them. Whereas I found some, not all of them, hand reared birds can be a bit weird at points, and that's it. It's weird. Birds can be weird like that. So yeah, thank you. Are they just specifically for showing? Um, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't know what you mean. PS. But yeah, obviously golden mules as well. Canaries generally will, they'll probably breed almost all year round when they're not molting anyway. I think I've had them go down as early as sort of, well, December before I've had them shredding paper, and that's the last thing I want them doing. What's the first video you made? How much you changed? If you're starting up, how would you go on about it? Would you get one bird from one place and one from someone else, or would you get a group? Yes, obviously we started the channel over sort of 2 years ago, and like you say, I've changed a lot and learned so much in that time, and obviously there's loads more to learn. What would I change? Um, it's difficult because I wanted to get into British birds for a good couple of years before I managed to even get hold of some. And I was interested in showing birds, for about the same amount of time. And I think it was probably, let's say, 3 years before having them, I wanted to get them and wanted to get into showing. But um, at the time, I found it so difficult to, one, find British birds, two, find British birds that were then closed rung and legit, not wild caught, and then three, show them, especially, I mean, this is, taking into account at this point, yeah, I use Facebook a lot now I use it for contacting most people with birds, and seeing birds, joining groups, joining, clubs. And I didn't have that at the time. It was very difficult. And I don't think there was even, I don't think the Canary Room had probably just started up. So what I hadn't seen much of that. Obviously, I'd not started up. Shane hadn't started up. The Bird Room, Direct Bird products at that time on YouTube. So it was really difficult for me to get into it. But what I would say is I'm starting up with some easier species. So my first British were greenfinches. That's fine. That's a good choice. Bullfinches, native bullies as well. Absolute nightmare. And yellowhammers. Now, if you gave a person who's never had British before, and they're very different to exotic sort of Australian finches, yellowhammers, I wouldn't go there. Bullies, very difficult. For everything that you have to be aware of with them. So I would have said stay away from those. Get greenfinches. I also had red poles in my first year, a little later on in that season. Red poles, absolutely go for them every single time. They're brilliant, and you can generally get them to go to nest. Feeding's a different issue, but my first pair did click. And I went siskins as well. Siskins, I'd probably tell a person who's starting out with British, avoid them for your first year, simply because the cockbirds are more than likely to smash eggs and kill chicks. And when you don't know about it, it's really upsetting because you don't know what's gone wrong, and you can't assume it's the cockbird. Or at least you wouldn't assume it would be. You wouldn't assume the parents did that. So that's what I'd say is greenfinches, red poles, probably breed them in, put them in flights, small flights if you can. Seed, egg food, baths often. Baycocks, something I didn't know about until I lost birds because I didn't know about it. So yeah, that's what I'd say. And vermin proofing, because that's always a problem. Don't worry about climate. These birds breed all year. Even wood pigeon breed every month. Don't be scared of the media scare. Lol. Yeah, exactly. So that's it. I mean, some birds do breed every month. Like wood pigeons. I found wood pigeon nests in December before. Sort of, I've seen them feeding chicks, and you're like, what on earth? I think as it goes for native birds to Britain that don't that nest all year round, there's only a handful, but it would be pigeons. Definitely do, especially feral pigeons, but they're a bit different, which is obviously the domestic rock dove. Um, Collared doves, I've found, I've seen nests later on, sort of October, but then they usually sort of October is probably the latest I've seen a nest. The earliest I've seen them nest is Feb, so there's probably a 4 month window when they don't breed, but every other time they do. Ducks, a duck is pretty much always a sort of maybe really sort of late February, early March sort of time. Pheasant, sort of same game bird sort of thing. So yeah. The breeding season itself for canaries is one that we set. Oh yeah, exactly, Shane. That's it. It's yeah. I think people in different countries do it differently, and it is interesting to see how people do it. But I think some people almost they have the canaries breeding almost all year. Give them, let's say, 2 months out to molt, and then they're straight sort of back into building them up to breed, and then they're breeding within a very very short amount of time. But yeah, like you say, it's one we set, and I guess what we allow, because I believe that a number of birds, like a number of canaries, would probably go to nest if you let them, sort of relatively soon after the molt. I mean, I've got birds that are nesting in mid molt. Blooming canaries building nests in seed pots that are losing feathers, and they're still wanting to go to nest. It's weird. But like I said, earlier before, I've had them go to nest in December before, and that was literally a mixed flight. They choose when to go down, and they went to nest in December. And that was actually awful. I got a show quality pair of fives because I really needed I wanted a pair of canaries, because the majority of them that I bought from pet shops were all cockbirds, even then when I was sold them apparently as hens. But this is really early days. And I got a pair of show quality fives. They went to nest in December, not long after I picked them up from a breeder. They went to nest, sat on the eggs for 14 days. The eggs hatched the same night. We had a really cold night. The mother died on the nest, and the chicks died as well. But yeah, that was in December, and yeah, that's birds in it. I've heard of some thrushes built. I've heard of some thrushes build a nest, laid a clutch of full eggs after they've molted. Yeah, I think I think my dad found a blackbird like October sort of time before blackbird nest when he was younger. I get it happens, but you have to go. Probably on average, it's going to be like such a small number of birds that do. It's like you just assume this is when the breeding season is. Excuse me. This is when the breeding season is. You get the odd few that don't meet that. I mean, I remember being about 8, I think, and like we've gone up a walk on the Peak District, and there's and there was just walk. It snowed as well, and there's just snow on top of the wall, and there's a robin. We actually saw her go in, like sort of down there. Was like, what's she doing? So anyway, look at it, and she sat on a nest of 5 chicks, sort of in a dry stone rock wall. There's snow over the top of the nest, and she sat on 5 chicks that, looking at it now, probably would have been about 5 days old. It's crazy, and that was in January. I'd probably put that about January 2010. After, I don't think no, it wouldn't have been the same year as that really bad snow we had in the UK. I'd probably say 2000 and I'd have been probably 2011 or 2009. So yeah, it's sometime around then. If we give any birds the right environment and health, they would breed all year round. I've seen this. Yeah, exactly, Shane. That's it. I mean, some of them are very, very easy to please, especially canaries. But yeah, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, I think we do hold them off anyway. But it's too much. I mean, this is why people have asked me before about getting zebra finches, Java sparrows, stuff like that. I know that some birds breed obviously at different times of year, depending on what cycle they're on. But I've heard that sometimes zebra finches can be paired up. You might pair them up in on November, and then through to March is the breeding season. The last thing I'd want to do is have birds like zebra finches and what breeding when I've got birds that are just overwintering. British, it's a nightmare. I asked why breed mules if they're all stale, they aren't just breeding a showing. Um, some songs showing some are very lovely to look at and also very hardy birds, long living. Yeah, exactly. That's it. PS. So it is that is the case. Some of are bred for show. There's sort of three types. There's the exhibition mules, which you're going to sort of breed off of a Norwich Canary. There's coloured mules, which you're going to breed off something like a red factor, and then there's song mules that you're going to breed off something like an Irish or a roller or something. Now, of course, those interchange. So a red factor goldfinch mule might sing as well as would a one with an Irish or a Norwich one, but you're probably sort of more likely to get a better songbird with that from what I've been told anyway. Um, and yeah, I think part of it is also the challenge is that essentially what you're doing is hybridizing two different birds, because they are technically hybrids. We just call them mules because they're with canaries. Um, and I think part of it is that sort of thing is that you're changing things up, you're experimenting, and it is interesting to see what you get. It is, I guess you could say, it's somewhat more thrilling than breeding just straight birds. In that, if you've got something that generally is going to fill clutches, fill clutches, fill clutches, that's always good. But when you breed something that's hard to breed, especially when it's something a bit more, not just a mule but a hybrid, especially, that's very exciting. Thanks. Is it Shane? Yeah, it's me. Nice one. Spoke to you yesterday about a package that arrived open about a mule and got. And you think it's a hen, not a cock. Nice chatting to you. Gloucester Canary's coming tomorrow. Ollie advised me to get a hen canary to go in with the mule. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't even realise that was on Instagram. Yeah, exactly. That's it with mules. It. I've had them before. I had a goldfinch mule a couple of years ago, and then a red poll mule, and I always found that having them on their own cage, especially in the breeding season, they just get really, really like boisterous and nasty. Because I think part of it's probably them being on their own, because you've put them with the cockbirds, they really do fight a lot. And I did find always that having them with a companion bird that they're not going to fight with is ideal. So a hen canary or a hen mule or something is ideal. Uh, Keeps them company, and then if they go to nest, the eggs are going to very likely be clear. Um, but then it just keeps them both happy, and it's nice to see it. And also, I would use them as feeders for something else if I needed it. I think you just look into the comments more of you're missing some important advice from more experienced bird keepers. There's monk parakeets where we live, wood pigeons have been recorded breeding every month year, as do crossbills. Forget climate change. Canaries in Spain also flayed in Jan. Address this, people. What you guys think? Yeah. Obviously, I get through the comments. It's just replying to some of them. It takes time. Yeah, apparently some of the comments are hidden. By the way, I don't see this. So if there are some that are hidden, I apologise for not replying. But there seems to be some sort of filter between what you guys see and what I see, because I've had people say, "Oh, have you not seen this?" And I was like, "No idea." And the screenshot, I'm like, "I definitely didn't see that." Because I do read them. Obviously, I read every single one of them, even when it's on comments on videos. I read every single one of them. I just need to find the time to go through and properly reply to you or whatever. So yeah, monk parakeets. Are you in the UK with those? Because I've heard that there are sort of emerging colonies of these monk parakeets in the UK. And I don't know how much truth there is to it and how well established UK these monk parakeets. Andalusia. I apologise, but I don't know where that is. I'm gonna I'm gonna jump that on maps. Just bear with a second. Um, oh yeah, got you. It's Spain. Fair enough. Yeah. So that's it. So monk parakeets. I've not looked into them that much, to be honest. I think there's southern Spain. Perfect. Nice one. I tell you what. I bet that's lovely, isn't it? Anyway, so monk parakeets. I think they're the same as quakers, aren't they? I think they're the same thing. I've not looked into them that much, but are they not a sort of Are they an Asian parakeet species? I'm gonna have to jump on my phone again. I apologize. Um, oh yes, that's a very good reminder. Thank you, Shane. Guys, by the way, this and I'm gonna share this on OC Aviary with you on the 16th of September, which is Friday. Yes, 2 weeks on Friday. Myself, Shane, Matt, and Dave from David's Bird Room. So obviously me from OC Avery, Shane from Direct Bird Products, the Bird Room, Matt from the Canary Room, and Dave from David's Bird Room are doing sort of a um, joint sort of live stream talk thing, and I'm going to share this on the OC Avery Facebook page, so you can all join on it. But it should be really good evening, all talking about different things. Obviously, things we've had from this season, and yeah, I recommend you come along to that. So if you want following us on Facebook, you'll find us on there. It's OC Avery. I think it's OC Avery YT. So for YouTube, on there, but you should find it. Just search OC Avery, and it should come up as a sort of business page, and you can go from there. Obviously, so yeah, and it's going to be, to my understanding anyway. It's not me who's arranging it. Is a complete sort of joint talk, and then you guys can join in on a comment section, I believe. But more information on that, I'll have to get you a bit more information on that, sort of soon as come the time, probably the week before or what. Yeah, so monk parakeets, are they not an Asian species? Because obviously, with climate change, they're going to be migrating and moving along further. They're going to be finding these new territories and all of that. Um, but I've heard that apparently there are populations popping up now in places which are, yeah, really weird populations. I'm talking here as well, like groups that haven't been seen, and they're not sort of spreading as like a wave almost, but they're sort of just popping up in random places, um, where you'd have thought, well, surely they haven't flown all the way from there, a group of them to start, settle down here and breed here. Um, but I've heard there's quakers, at least in the UK, in small colonies that have been recorded successfully breeding. And what I believe I've seen as well is that they've been nesting on pylons and stuff, where there's these massive sort of stick balls almost on sort of pylons. Whether it be sort of a phone telephone wire pylon or something, or sort of transformers, the big Eiffel Tower sort of things. And bunching up around that, really. And apparently there's multiple pairs nesting there. It's interesting, and it's also concerning, because obviously these birds are really sort of out of their area at that, and they're a very adaptable species, a parakeet anyway, and they do change. So I think that's it's something to worry about, isn't it? Really, where they're going to be further in their range. They're going to be pushing out native species by taking the food, taking the habitat, whatever, and it is a problem. I think in the UK at least, the ringneck parakeets that live wild in London and are now really starting to spread up here. I've seen one up here, like a single one, a couple of years ago, just flying over, and it was definitely a wild one as well, because of, well, it's actually, I'm pretty confident it was a wild one. It was a green one for one, and it just seemed quite content, not sort of rocketing off as though it had been chased or something, or got escaped or what have you. So yeah, and I don't believe there's any laws that protect them, other than sort of obviously animal cruelty sort of things. I believe that you're allowed to cull them and all sorts of. If you catch them, or you've got a sort of an injured one, you can't release it because they're invasive. So it has to be kept, and it's just interesting to see how different countries will deal with it. And I think this is going to become more and more common, as that this population we've got in the UK now, I think, might be a problem, in that they're probably relatively badly inbred, unless there's been numbers of new blood introduced somehow, whether it be the odd escape bird or what, but they seem to be doing really well, and the population is healthy and expanding. And it's obviously they're moving up north. I believe they're now, as you know, there's numbers of them being seen over in Ireland, so they've crossed over there, and they've also crossed over into Spain, into France and that area. But it's also joining up with the population that's expanding from India and that sort of area, and it's sort of coming together. And as soon as they come together, there's a massive influx of new genes, and then the whole population becomes sort of rather healthy. And then these new birds come up, and before you know it, Europe is going to be home to a lot of parakeets that 100 years ago that weren't here. And we've kind of got to adapt to it. And our native species that have been here for thousands of years are either going to have to live with it and compete, or they're going to die. And it's not ideal. And I think that's why they're on about, with these culls and stopping people releasing them, is to stop, try and reduce it as much as possible, because they are causing problems. Although I have to admit, they're lovely to see. Like seeing them in London the other day, you hold an apple and they come out, sit in your hand and eat it. It was fantastic, and I absolutely loved it. And it is an attraction. There's like loads of people, hundreds of people go to this specific spot every day in London, in St James's Park, because when I've been there, and I've been there twice, like in the morning and afternoon, there's always people there, and there's like the same guy there every single day, who just clearly, what he does is he just comes and feeds the parakeets. I think there is that attraction there, but we'll have to see. Not sure why I think climate change is not an issue. Is it, it's not just about breeding birds, it's about the planet, animals on Earth. Yeah, of course, yeah, exactly. That's it. It's not just breeding birds, like we say, but it makes a massive difference. It's not. Yeah, it changes everything. It's a real problem. Like that, I'm saying birds in Spain have a long breeding period. Okay, we just come across like I thought it was an issue. No, I'm with you. Just saying about the bird. Yeah, yeah, it changes everything, of course, and then I think because of the climate change, obviously it changes crops as well. So you might sow crops earlier, and you get a higher yield, or you might get a worse yield if there's not enough rain. Of course, in summer, there's not enough rain, the crops can't grow, the crops dry out, they die, and then we have no crops. It's problems. I think you could probably sow them earlier, but then you're still going to have problems. It's a problem. Food, animals as well. In the summer at least, it doesn't rain. There's all these cows and sheep and all that sort of thing. These animals that are crying out loud, ruminants. Yeah, they feed on all the grass and all that sort of stuff. And then them not being able to eat this grass because it hasn't been, it's died because it's not been rained on in however long. Then they have to be fed from hay and I think there's pellet feed for them as well. It's and then it costs loads of money, and then you have to make up more of that, and then higher demand means more growing of it. It's a bad cycle. It's not ideal, and it's going to cause problems. There's going to be a lot of people that end up in a couple of years time, however many years time, are going to be going hungry so often because they can't get food because climate change. So it's a nightmare, and there's going to be, if it carries on the way it's going and doesn't get sort of fixed soon, it's there's going to be areas of this planet that aren't going to be inhabitable because it's too hot and nothing can't be grown. Water will be evaporating at ridiculous rates. Stuff will start to melt because tarmac, for example, in the UK, it gets really hot, the tarmac starts to go sticky. It's like great. It burns rubber. It's real problems. It's really bad. And we need to do something about it. And it's my generation that's going to have to, well, okay, actually, no, it's the generation now that's in control that needs to be doing something. But a lot of people don't seem to be completely aware of it, especially, those in power, bloody Boris. And yeah, so Yeah, but no, let's not go to politics. Um, yeah, there's tens of thousands of them where I am here, mate. They've been here since the 90s, I believe, and yeah, cull every year, I believe. Yeah, exactly, that's it. I, I think it was in the, I want to say the 60s they were originally released, and no one really knows how they got here. I think the main story that's going on is that there was a film set where they had a load of them in a rainforest sort of setting, and they escaped. The population was all right, and then they started to breed, and then of course they breed quite quickly and quite readily. So there's going to be five probably clutches of them. They breed all year, so they'll breed a lot. Um, I've had cockatiels, for example, they'll have two nests on the go at a time. It's ridiculous. Um, and they breed so quickly. And then, of course, there's these, escapees joining them. And I mean, I can't, I don't know how the hell it got so, the population have got so big so quickly. Like, you can tell me, okay, yeah, you know what, 100 escaped from this, uh, yeah, set. But you're telling me that there's then 50 pairs of them, which there won't be because there's going to be more males than females or more females than males, all around one area, all competing on the same food, all breeding at the same time. There's going to be inbreeding going on there. So there's going to be problems there because you're going to have brothers and sisters doing that. So that's sort of, okay, that might be all right for generations, and that's the end of that line. They're going to be getting preyed on, especially like not in the summer by hawks, because I struggled seeing them because they're just bright green tree. But in winter, I imagine they're quite readily preyed on, sort of thing, especially by maybe not a sparrowhawk, but a buzzard would probably have one. I mean, sparrowhawk might have one, especially a big female, probably be all right, especially with young ones. And either way, that's just nuts to me, especially how quick it's grown. I know it's maybe, let's say, 50 years or what, but you've ended up from 100 birds escaping to now hundreds of thousands of them in this country is absolutely nuts. Oh, for crying out loud, I do this every single time. Hold on. Yeah, I know there's obviously culls of them. I don't know how effective they are and how many they end up culling, but um, yeah, it's interesting at least. I mean, when I was in St James's Park the other day in London, there was probably, you'd say there was a good 10 of them hanging around this certain spot to feed, and all coming around, hanging in the trees and what, and then a couple of them occasionally coming down for food. But I didn't see any this time round. I didn't see any massive flocks of them. Like I didn't see like a flock of 50 of them. I just saw small, numbers of individual ones. And maybe it's working, but maybe they're hanging around other areas, keeping away from people, some of them. So, and then obviously London's massive anyway, so it's not like you're going to have them all in one place. But I've heard that a real hot spot for them is centre of London. Excuse me. And there didn't seem to be an awfully sort of large amount of them from what I saw anyway. So yeah, they call them here too, although they are beautiful birds such as sight on the trees, feeding on seeds, don't read into the climbing onto the on the trees. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? But yeah, they're not really often recorded up here, sort of Sheffield sort of way. There's a couple of, I've heard apparently there's some of them in parks in Sheffield, but I've yet to see them. I know if I want to see them, I'm going to go to London to see them because that's the place that you can almost guarantee you are going to see them. Anywhere else, I'm probably not. It's sort of on the off chance sort of thing. I hear that as well. It's like everything you hear, you have to think about what to believe or not. How they got here. Yeah, exactly. That's it. That I think the main theory is that sort of escape from a set. I think there's the other theories that are sort of a combination of birds that have escaped from pet shops, or people leaving the windows open, have just managed to join up, breed. They've done all right. they've gone off, they've found another one. But I think that's sort of like, if you, let's say you release 10 birds that are like, I don't know, let's pick something. Okay, right, here you are. We're gonna get 10 African grey parrots, and you're gonna release 10 of them in the UK in different locations. So you're gonna release one in Scotland, Edinburgh. You're gonna release one in Glasgow. You're gonna release one in Manchester, one in Sheffield, one in Birmingham, one in South End of Cornwall, uh, one in Brighton, one in London, and stuff like that. These got these one single birds that you're then, then the theory is that these single birds that could have escaped from miles and miles apart have somehow been flying in the same direction to come and find each other. Like, have you any idea how big this place, the country is anyway, and how close the birds have to be together to go, hey, oh, there's another one of them there. You know what I mean? Like, unless it's going to sit on the one same place and shout all single day and hope one that passes within half a mile of it hears it. I can't see that possibly being the way. The only explanation could be a large enough group of them escaped from somewhere, started breeding, and then there's been additives to that population because they've covered such a large area, that point in this family group, that other bits have joined in. It's, it, I mean, no one, I don't think anyone will ever know, but it's interesting. So yeah, hey mate, long time no speak. Oh hi, hi OnlyFins, you all right, mate? Um, Peter Good had the same problem, mate. Just close it and log back on, mate. I don't know if it's our phone. Oh, I apologise, Peter. I don't know why that's the case. I've not changed anything on here. The audio all is supposedly fine. So I do apologise, and yeah, hopefully that has fixed it for you. Just going off and back on again. Thank you. No problem. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's, you know, I think that theory you have to debunk. You have to say that the theory of random birds escaping and managing to find each other and then breed to not inbreed and form a healthy population is sort of almost impossible. Yeah, I mean, it, I think the rewilding stuff is the real interesting part. Is introducing stuff that hasn't been in this country for a long time, because the natural balance in this country of animals and stuff is, animal populations is just messed up. You know, deer deer have no natural predator here, so if we didn't have gamekeepers that regularly maintained and took control of deer populations, we would be outrun so quickly because of it. It's ridiculous. Because the only thing, there's two or three things that would realistically hunt a deer in this country naturally: a wolf, a lynx, and I can't imagine a bear would be that interested, but it might. A wolf and a lynx for sure. Well, we don't have either of them here anymore. The closest thing we have is a dog, and a dog isn't going to bother a deer because they can't be bothered and they get fed at home. A bear obviously went out, as we were extinct from this country about, I don't know, 5,000 years ago. Lynx, I believe, 1,000 years ago, and wolves probably similar to the lynx, because we just hunted them to extinction because they were killing stuff. And obviously there's projects to reintroduce certain species, especially keystone species that are really important to this country, and make habitats for others. So it's like the best one that you can think of that has almost been a real success is beavers. Beavers hadn't been in this country, I think 5 years ago. I don't think there was any, and then they've been slightly reintroduced in a number of different sites, and they've started building dams that stop water flow as much, which then creates a wetland. This wetland then houses, grows a load of new different things that couldn't usually grow in this slow water. Brilliant for amphibians. The amphibians are there because there's amphibians and there's all these plants growing. There's loads more insects because there's all these insects. There's all, the amphibians have got loads to feed on, and then there's new birds that are feeding on the insects, feeding on the flowers, feeding on the frogs. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. So and it changes it so much. Um, and the reintroduction of birds in this country is, I think, starting. So they've looked at reintroducing. I think not curl, Searle buntings were reintroduced in Devon and Cornwall. Um, yeah, that's interesting. Um, it, so yeah, that's I think that worked as well. Um, I think black grouse had been reintroduced in the Peak District. However, I don't think that was as successful as it was hoped to be. I think it's now only pocketed populations. Almost, it's not sort of a healthy population of black grouse in the peaks anymore. Um, it exactly. Red kites. Just seeing that. Yeah, red kites. Exactly. So red kites were on the verge of extinction, however many years ago in the UK, and because of conservation efforts and stuff like that, there's now, I think, more than there's ever been, and it's fantastic to see them. Um, yeah, others. I'm trying to think of other things that have been reintroduced bird wise here. Um, White storks. That's an exciting, interesting one. So I was talking to people who actually know the people who were in charge of that project and how it all worked. And what they did is they got injured white storks from a number of different countries. I think there was a couple of Polish ones, a couple of German ones, where they exist in the wild in Europe, and they got injured ones that couldn't be released for whatever reason. Brought them over here and had very, very, very large pens of just netted off farmland for them. They released them in there where they can't be predated on by anything like a fox or what. So they were safe in there. They then bred here in sort of the areas around that where they could get. And because they bred here, these youngsters were then bred here. The youngsters are then acclimatized to this and haven't ventured off anywhere else. So they've then began breeding, and there's now a population, and it's only a small population, but a population of white storks growing in the UK, and that's been a successful project. I think you would class it as a successful project. Really, really exciting. Return of the chough in Cornwall. Exactly, that's another one. That's been reintroduced. White-tailed sea. Is it white-tailed sea eagles? There was a number of those released on the. I want to say Isle of Wight, but I don't know if that's correct. Isle of Wight. There were 4 or 5 youngsters, I believe. Only 2 or 3 years ago. They've been sort of up and down the UK, circling round, and seem to return to the same place they were released. And they're hoping they'll breed, because I think there is a population, I believe it's still a small population, of wild white-tailed seagulls in on around the Isle of Mull in Scotland. And that's great. Is that these options, these things have been reintroduced. Was there not a fisher eagle reintroduced in the Lake District? I don't know. I'm not sure. I've not heard about that one. Obviously, there's, ospreys have been. They weren't reintroduced, but they were, in conservation, up to a point, where they were. I think there were only something like 10 pairs of them in the UK at some point, and then now, because of conservation efforts and maybe the odd release, they've picked up, and there's now a sensible population of them. I don't know how good the population is, but there's a sensible population of ospreys, which are sort of sea eagles or sea hawks. I'm trying to think of the birds. I think that there's talk of introducing stuff like I want to say willow tits or marsh tits to certain areas. There's bearded reedlings, also I forgot what they're called. Yeah, bearded tits they'd be called, wouldn't they? To most people who know them anyway, which aren't in the bird keeping hobby. I think they've been looked at being reintroduced in certain places. There are certain ducks and wetland species that have been in areas where they have existed previously, and for whatever reason aren't there. Aren't there anymore. Obviously, the problem that is why they weren't there has been fixed, so they can be reintroduced. Uh, Also, by the way, I love your channel. Really appreciate Loverbirds, the breeding, your confidence in doing what you're doing. And wish you all the best and best with the shed and keep it up, mate. Oh, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. That kind words really, it goes a long way. Thank you. What was happening with the reptile guys in the UK? Going to work with Nordic reptiles at Celtic. Yeah. So that's sort of still on the cards. It's just it's gone on hold for the moment. The cost of that they've had some really big projects come in recently. The side of it which we was talking about, Nicole name by the way. Oh, I apologize, Nicole. Thank you very much. Sign off for tonight. All the best, you guys, and comments. All the best with the guys. Stay safe and all the best. Love from Spain. Thank you very much, Nicole. Really appreciate it. Thank you, and hey, have a good rest of your evening or whatever. So thank you. So yeah, Celtic. It's still on the cards, and it's probably going to happen at some point, but they've had some very big projects recently with the amphibians and keeping on control of that. There's a lot of work in it. They've got a rather large facility. They've got a lot of amphibians and reptiles. So, there's the whole, there's only so much one person or two people can do at that time. So, I think it's going to happen. It's just paused at the moment. And I'm going to be looking to, make differences and try and get something sort of the ball rolling with that in some way possible, especially once the new bird rooms here. I'd be interested in getting a number of pairs of birds. I mean, to be honest, the problem is it's for the money it costs to get the birds in, to breed the birds, to do all of that. It's so expensive. Like with what you aren't going to look to do is reintroduce or introduce birds that are cheap in at least generally in bird keeping. So you aren't going to be looking to reintroduce, or release anything like a greenfinch or a redpoll that's going to cost £20 a bird, for the sort of low end, low quality, similar to wild type birds. You're talking birds here that are, I don't know, shrikes that might cost £1,000 a pair, serins that cost about £400 a pair. Birds that are typically not available often in the wild. There's not many of them in the wild. Are typically not available. Many of them in captivity. Now, why is that? I don't know, but there's not. So, not always, not in every case, but in some cases, there's not. Especially with, it seems to be with British birds. So it costs a lot, and what you might say is, right, we'll do this. We'll do a reintroduction project. We're going to breed a number of these, let's say serins, for example. Let's say we have 3 pairs of serins. We breed 15 of them. We're going to keep 6 of them, and we're going to release 9 of them, or something like that. And we're going to breed, do that. Well, obviously you have to release them and go through all sorts of method statements and all this and how it's going to work, why you're going to reintroduce them, and all of that. And then you might be looking, well, yeah, but I'm releasing now like £2,000-3,000 worth of birds that could go out there and die. And then they've cost me, let's say £100 to feed in that time but insects and all sorts. It's massive. So I'd be very, very interested in getting in with the rewilding and making that difference. But that would require an investor who would be interested in that, and obviously you need permission for land and people to oversee it. It's a lot of work, and this is why I want to do it in sort of in partnership with Celtic, because they have the contacts in that side of thing, and know people who would want this sort of thing. So yeah. Have you seen what a burbot looks like? It's a cool fish. What's the set price for breeding number for? I haven't seen a burbot. I tell you what, I'll take a look now. Is that, you say that's been reintroduced? Because I didn't know really about that. Let's have a look. That's interesting. That's interesting. Reintroducing a fish, because, well, there's all sorts, isn't there? Burbot fish. Is it fresh or salt? Freshwater. No, marine freshwater cod. Oh, I have seen these. I didn't know I've not seen one in person, but I have seen these before. They're like a Baisha. Um, wow, wow, that's interesting. It's a good idea. I think the only problem that you would have with that sort of thing, and you'd have to be very careful with, is that if you're reintroducing something like that, well, where are you going to reintroduce it? Well, if you reintroduce it into a pond, like that's an isolated population. You know what I mean? Like these fish, it's not like you reintroduce a mammal or a bird because it can travel and go wherever it wants. But reintroducing a fish, if you release it into a pond or something, unless you're going to use that as a breeding stock to then dip into and release in pockets, it's difficult. So what I would imagine is that it's reintroducing them in certain waterways, and you might say that there's a stretch of, I don't know, the Thames further up that you want to reintroduce them in, or um, the Derwent River. But then it's how do you monitor that? How do you know it's been successful? Because you're going to release this fish that's then, poof, it could end up 50 miles downstream within a week, and then end up getting eaten by something. So it must be really difficult reintroducing fish to waterways that aren't controlled like that. But I hope it works, because that'd be good. I imagine that they feed on different things and do a different role, so they would make a difference. What is the set price on bird? Is it the difficulty of breeding, or just number employed, etc.? It changes. It depends on the type of bird it is, because, for example, it's like if you just went on absolute availability of birds, and, for example, number imported or what, or difficulty of breeding, then you'd say, okay, well, a canary or a canary would be £5 a bird, because they're really easy to get hold of. There's probably loads of them imported, and they're not hard to breed. But obviously, that's not the case. Is that there's certain values, and because of breeds, for example. So one, it depends on the availability of the breed. So if it's an unusual breed, there's going to cost more because there's less of them. Then it depends on the quality. So obviously, I could give you two Fife canaries. I can give you one that's sort of a bit drab. It's not the best colour. It's not the most round bird, and I could say that's 20 quid. Or I could give you one that's like lovely and round, fantastic colour. Everything's close to the show type, so it's dependent on the standard as well, isn't it? You know what I mean? So that's what I'd say. So there's that. There's, of course, the availability. So if you look at birds that almost aren't bred to sort of show, like a hawfinch, for example, selectively breeding hawfinches is going to be difficult because there's so few of them. So it would be more dependent on importing. In that case, is that if you can't import them, well, there's just a very small amount of them imported, it's going to be difficult. So yeah, you'd have to say that they're worth. The price of a bird is based on availability and quality of the bird. So Oliver, how much are you looking to get your birds in? I'm sorry, I can't read. So Oliver, how much are you looking to get your birds in the bench? Do you mean like how many outings or something, Shane, or how many how many birds am I going to be putting on the bench? Hi mate, I've got an aviary and want to separate it off and have more large aviaries for individual birds. Do you know where I could get birds from? Where's yours come from? Thanks, Billy. What type of bird you after, mate? There's obviously certain places are better for them, and you best probably getting them direct from a breeder, ideally, because you can sort of tap into that bloodline and source of them. But also big shows. So Stafford, the Stafford National Exhibition on October 2nd. That's a really good place to source birds, and sort of Newark as well is probably a good one to go for. So these big ones. Looking forward. So yeah, hopefully that does it for you. So how? Oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit tired. So how much are you looking to get your birds in the bench? Yeah, a number of times, Shane. So I don't know if you saw earlier, but I'd said so. I'm now as the new show secretary for the Lancashire British Bird and Mule Club. So that's going to be one, definitely. Obviously, getting some birds on in the show bench. How many I'm going to put in? You know, let's say four to six red poles. Probably, similar in greenies, a couple of twites maybe, hawfinch on there. Um, a mule or two, which I'll have. A couple of bits like that. I could show a Norwich because I've got a Norwich show cage, but they're not. They don't know. I don't know how they defend, and I don't really want to start my club. My countdown for being going from novice to champion on Norwich if I've not even got some sort of base stud of them. I don't know if I'm going to be looking forward. Looking to go forward into showing with Norwich, and same goes for new colours as well. So that's Lancashire. I don't know what's going off with the Yorkshire. I would like to show at the Yorkshire, but uh, you know, the last time that I heard from them was the sort of autumn, sort of 2019 show. So I don't even know if the club's going anymore. Not heard anything from them since that point. So it might just might just shut down completely, and we'd not heard about it. Probably a local CBS or two. I'll be going the All British, Staffordshire, which is the All British, isn't it? National British Bird and Mule Club. So it's probably 4 or 5 shows, and then I mean I want to get in with the CBS shows, but it depends. Like last season, the CBS shows were on the same weekend, the same day as were the big British shows, and I felt awful because I obviously wanted to support the local shows as well. But when it's a massive show, it's like I want to be getting my birds in there to where they're going to compete, so I can get a really good idea of where they sit and how good they are or how shit they are. So yeah, he's asking how much you're looking forward to going to the shows in Mr. Oh, for crying out loud! I'm so sorry, Shane. I've just had an oh my god, I feel like an idiot. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be it's gonna be good. It's gonna be. I'm specifically, I want to look forward. I'm looking forward to seeing how my birds fend on it from. Obviously, I've now got in some better greenies as we did a couple of years ago. From your line, obviously, I still won't mind another pair from your line if that's something you could sort Shane at some point. Because they're now getting up in quality. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we've produced this year and how they get on the show bench and hopefully have progressed and moved forward. Red poles are the same. Obviously, I did put make sure to bring in a good quality normals to breed with this year. Now we did only breed off 1 pair of the normal red poles of the 3 or 4 pairs that we had. But from those that we did breed, they look quite good. The parent, the original pairs are looking good as well. So I can mix and match them next season anyway. But I'm looking forward to seeing how they get on the show bench as well. So yeah, quite looking forward to it. And hopefully seeing the improvements that this, what we've bred this year will have done. Where can I find a good show cage for sale? Depending on the I'm going to say depending on what type of show cage you're after, direct bird products, so the bird room does, has a number of them. I think there's a British on there. Yeah, I might be wrong here, but British Fifes. I think there's Norwich on there as well, isn't there? And, go on Direct Bird Products website. There's some cracking show cage as well. I got some number 4s in earlier on in the season for the Hawfinches. I'm lending one of them to a mate. One of the number 4 show cages because I don't plan on showing the male Hawfinch. I think he's just getting a bit old, to be honest, and it's not worth showing him. But the hen's really good. So I'm going to be showing her. But yeah, these are cracking show cages, really well made and finished as well. So recommend them. Typing bird breeders near me. Only things I Shane bird products and I pair for you. That's great. Really appreciate that. Thanks, Shane. Really do appreciate that, mate. Obviously, it's just trying to get those. Trying to get the source, the good quality birds is difficult, and obviously people have very, very large backlogs of um, waiting lists. And I mean, I have a waiting list, but it's so some people some sort of asks are so specific. It's very difficult to meet them. What I'm looking for is a good quality pair of greenies that I could probably, I probably wouldn't breed together, but I would probably mix in with the other ones and form this, decent stud. But from what some people are after, it's like it has to be this color with this sort of shape and these markings. For example, on a red poll, it's like, mate, that's a massive ask. These are what I'm going to have, and you're going to have to decide if you want them. It's very difficult. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that, Shane. Really do, honestly. Thank you. Shane, do you have any number twos at the moment? Yeah, I have to check. In random showcase, yeah, exactly. I think actually, yeah, I think there might be. Darren Hadley made some very nice showcases. Yeah, he has some cracking showcases. I think they're the same ones that Shane has, aren't they? I don't know. Darren Hadley has some very good ones. What I did see last, no, 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks ago, Darren Hadley has some fantastic showcases. I mean, they look awesome. They're so nicely finished. I think he finishes them differently in the paint job and everything, but these are really, really nice. Like, they're gonna be, they're probably not very cheap, obviously, as you would expect, but they're good. But they're great anyway. I think one of the styles of showcase he does, which is the Irish one, has been rejected by the Irish clubs because something to do. Sorry, something to do with it being uh, a classed as a marked cage, and I don't quite understand how, but I think he said because the finish is different on them, um, they but because they have a different finish on them, and they seem to, I mean, I think the colours are exactly the same, but apparently they could be classed as a marked cage or something, these specific Irish ones. So I have no idea why that's the case, but um, it is. But honestly, they're fantastic. I really do like them. So hats off to Darren for them. Um, do you know how to find local breeds? I'm in Bristol. You just have to put either bird breeds in Bristol. I think there's. I could be completely wrong here, but I think the seven. Is it the seven counties? Obviously, Severn is in the River Severn. I think he's down that. I want to say he's down that way. I'm honestly not too sure, but you'll be able to find breeders through that. Even if it just puts something like birds for sale near me, birds for sale Bristol, then there might be a number of birds for sale, and you might have to contact the people if the birds you're interested in. Say like, do you breed them? And you can get in contact that way. And number two, yeah, the stranger found some all over the country. Yeah, there's loads. The bird room, thanks, Shane. I'll have a look. What websites are you using? Aren't we using? I might just be blind. Yeah, you just just Google it, and hopefully, there will become some. Shane, you might be able to answer this question for me if you don't mind. What is the I know difference between a Scottish pattern showcase, British showcase, and English pattern is obviously I think it's the difference of like an inch in a certain direction or what, but why do we have two different patterns? And is there a place or time to use the certain pattern? Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, I mean, I use the larger style 3 show cages for stuff like crossbills because they're just that little bit extra, but not a number 4 that I've seen. I've apparently heard of crossbills getting out before, or like a big mule or something. I just wondered what's the point in having an English and a Scottish pattern if like you don't have to have a certain pattern for a certain show or something. I didn't really get it. I just know they're available, and it never quite clicked. Honestly, Billy, I'm not sure what else I can tell you from that, mate. As well as yeah, PS, just because it is literally a case of just searching, sort of your bird breeds in your area, or you might put. It depends on what you're after, but you might just put like canaries for sale Bristol, see what comes up, and if there's something like specific, like show quality fifes, and maybe that's what you're interested in. Message the person if they're a breeder. It's a useful one. The English is the traditional one. I like it better. Scottish are now introduction in the 90s. Right. Okay. So is it literally just like an extra edition, two options, slightly different sizes, then just to give you that sort of flexibility or something? Because that's what I didn't quite get. Like people had said, "Oh yeah, we've got this English pattern one or a Scottish pattern." Now I'm like, wait, what? Why does it make a huge difference? I mean, still can't remember which ones are bigger and which ones are smaller, but oh well. I found some breeds on Preloved in the bird room. Yeah, Preloved is a good one for that sort of thing. Preloved and Pets for Homes. However, Pets for Homes is, I mean, look, I've used that website for probably 10 years. I think the first time I used it, I was selling a cockerel that I'd bred. A chicken cockerel. I think I bred it, hatched it. Anyway, I really want to keep it, but because we'd already got a cockerel, it was like, yeah, they're probably going to fight, and I'd rather get rid of the young one than the older one because it was a pet, and it kind of pet anyway. But yeah, Preloved is really good for it, but it does seem to have took a dip recently, and it just doesn't. You have to pay for certain things now that were once free on it, and then it's like, oh, it doesn't give you as much exposure, and it's just like annoying. Um, yes, English are 1 inch bigger. We can use both here, but I only use English. Oh, right, okay. I didn't know about Ireland had a different, a different policy. So how is the bird almost like just disqualified from the show if it turns up in a Scottish show cage? Wow. Wow, I didn't know about that. I didn't know there was a certain like I didn't know about that in Ireland with like, oh yeah, these can't be used in this country. Wow. Yeah, no problem, Billy. You're welcome, mate. Yeah, I do recommend if you can get to Stafford or Stafford's probably the easier one for you in that if you are Bristol, it is up that side of the country, rather than Newark's probably a bit of a pain, maybe. But I do recommend if you can get to Stafford, it's probably ideal to um, look at. And you will find so much there. And if there's a certain species you're interested in or breed, people who sell them, try and get some details from them, and then go from there. It's ideal. And they might even say, "Oh, yeah, so and so's down Bristol way," and then you can get in contact with them. It's ideal. It's literally talking to people. It's only £5 for the year pre-loved. I don't really know because I've not used it that much now. I look on there occasionally just to see if there's anything that catches my eye, but I don't sell on pre-loved anymore or Pets for Homes because I've got a lot of people wanting these birds, so nothing really comes up on that I would be putting up on there because I've usually got someone who would want it, be interested, or I'll just if I know it's going, I'll just save it until like Stafford, and then it'll go there. There's even auctions, but that's how it works for me. Yeah, like I say, I do look on there occasionally if there's something I'm specifically after that I can't find. Like if I need something on short notice, like I don't know, mid breeding season, I don't know, a male canary's clopped it or something. There's always male canaries on there, and if it's something that I just need as a feeder, and it's like I can get one for 10 quid off of there. That's an aviary bird. It's all right, and it doesn't matter. I can get one, but I don't really use it for much else. I mean, there is some ideal stuff on there, like when people are selling bits of equipment. Like I have found good deals on there before with like not always show cages, but breeding cages. They've been really cheap. I'm like, this is like a couple of years ago, but it's like, wow, that's actually a good deal. So I'll take them and use them. So yeah, uh, and then you get to see all the adverts the minute they go live. I just have a looking for a hen as you advised. Oh right, okay, nice one. Fair enough. Yeah, this is it where it's like I know there's certain things where I don't know if it was it is it pre-loved where it was like, oh yeah, you can't respond to this advert until it's past 7 days old. I'm like, yeah, but it might have sold by then, and then you have to pay for it, and it's like, oh, it's just annoying. So I just don't use the site anymore. But I don't really need to now. I do have a look sometimes if there's anything interesting on there. Like, something local. Right, let's just see if anyone's got a really cheap parrot or something that might be interesting, or um, you know, oh, there's some goats for sale. Honestly, like if I had enough land to, I would have goats, I would have sheep. I'd be basically building my own little zoo. But yeah, um, so there you are. But yeah, that's quite a few bits. I'm sorry, guys. It's obviously probably what, yeah, it's nearly 25 to 11. Ireland are very strict, and even the different tone of paint would be thrown out. Wow, I didn't know it was that bad. This is one of the things that's confused me. Is there was like two accepted show cage, British show cage green paint. I think there was I want to say Georgian green, and the one that's sort of almost a turquoisey. So I got when I was literally my first year, I got some show cages that were obviously pre-owned. Um, in that sort of Georgian, not the Georgian green, the other one, the more turquoisey one. Sanded them down, painted it, and done all that. Right, look great. I'm really happy with them. And when I took them to the show, I was like, hold on, they're like my ones are more almost blue than and they're supposed to be green. I was like, oh, I thought honestly, I'm going to get marked down for this, and then yeah. Um, so yeah, um, so yeah, it was just annoying, but I didn't realize it was that bad in Ireland with sort of how strict it is. But yeah, fair enough. It is what it is, isn't it? Um, yeah, it's just confusing. I think there's now I don't know if the BBC have changed it, but it was like I think it's now only emerald green, so I'm probably gonna have to repaint them all. But yeah, like you say, it's not awfully strict in this country, and that the shades don't massively differ. But yeah. The cages in the UK are much different than here in Belgium. Yeah, aren't the ones in Belgium almost like aren't they all plastic cages or something like they have at the World Show or something? Um, yeah, that's why you pay the £5. Yeah, well, yeah, I know. It's just, that's it. It's just for how much I'd use it. I know it's only a fiver, but it's like for how often I use it, it's just not worth it to me because I'm like, well, I just chuck in £5 at it, and then for what I'm actually after, it's probably not going to be on there anyway, and I'd probably be getting a better getting it from a breeder, but it is what it is. The cages in the UK are much different than here in Belgium. Yeah, we've seen that. Thanks, Ian. Get them sort of Monday for you. Nice one. It's wood, but black and white. Oh yes, yes. Sorry, of course it is. I've seen them. Yeah, previously they're like I think it's the same color scheme as the soft bill cages are in the UK, like almost like budgie cages. But I think that does work nicely. Yeah, I think you get a better contrast to the birds generally, unless you're showing something like I don't know an Isabel red poll or something. The contrast is probably better. It's like a really bright greenfinch in a green show cage doesn't, I don't think, always look the best. Whereas if it was a white one, it does contrast a bit more. So yeah, but nice one. Uh, in cages bigger also. Yeah, I have seen that as well, where like showing bullfinches. The cages in the UK are like, let's say, I don't know, 14 inches wide, whereas the ones that they got bullfinches in are almost like, yeah, a good over a foot. Um, yeah, the big cages either way. It looks good. I think it's a good idea. Although obviously what it does do is take up a load more room. But maybe the birds show themselves better. I've obviously, yeah, I haven't been to a show over in the continent, to be honest, or even in Ireland. I'm looking to do that this winter. Is maybe come over to Ireland. Not, I mean, I won't be able to show my birds because probably won't be able to bring them over. But go to a show in Ireland, in one of the big ones. It'd be good fun. See the different standard birds over there. Me, a lot of the Irish chaps I've just not met because obviously they've not been over here and I've not been over there. And yeah, it'd be good. But I'd like to go to the World Show. Hopefully that's something that could be on the cards for sort of January, February time. But I'm not sure. So yeah. Anyway, guys, look, it's like 20 to 11. I've had a very long day. I've been from, I've had an away day, hence why I'm in my football shirt as well. And that's a long day. Don't get me wrong, I don't drink, but it's nevertheless a lot of traveling, an awful lot of shouting, an awful lot of cheering because we won today. And yeah, so it's been a long day, but you know, I enjoy doing this anyway. But we've been on for over 2 hours now, haven't we? So yeah, thank you ever so much for everybody who's come on the stream anyway. Really appreciate it. And obviously, we'll see you in October, which will be the night before Stafford. That will be good fun. There's a lot of stuff going off at Stafford that the following day, for me anyway. So should be good. If you want to if you want top red poles, they're here in Belgium. Yeah, Dimitri, I have seen that there is some absolutely fantastic red poles over there. I would love some. The problem is importing them. At least I think the problem with you know, with Brexit and changing all the rules on livestock transportation, it's a nightmare. So I don't know how easy it would be to do it, but hopefully when sort of rules might be a bit more relaxed, I will be looking to do that and bring in some you know, quality ones. I mean, there's very good quality ones in this country, but I know there's quite a few of them as well. So yeah, well done, Oliver. Thanks, Dad. Thanks so much, Oliver. It's been great. Yeah, you're welcome, PS. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Next week's video, I don't quite know what it'll be, but it'll probably be something along the lines of the parakeets in London, because obviously I've been down there and filmed loads of them, something a bit different. And yeah, so yeah, thank you ever so much, everyone. Another good live chat, mate. Yeah, thank you very much, Jamie. Thank you, Aaron, as well. So yeah, really appreciate it, guys. See you in the next one. Thank you.